Just streaming. Finally streaming. I'm going to keep this one quick. Not even going to really wait for anyone because I really want to do this quick. But let me crack this open. I hope everyone's doing well that rewatches this. Everyone's talking about nuclear war, Putin doing something first, Dementia Joe doing something first, China maybe we'll do something first, who knows? Nobody knows, but everyone's not really showing the footage of what a nuclear explosion looks like. So I looked it up on archive.org, and we're just going to go over some footage. So without further ado, let's start with this classic here. Oh, and if you're watching, looks like there's people watching now. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter. And you can do your part to support Ukraine. The people of Ukraine, I stand with Ukraine. This is why I'm watching this video. What's up, Les Bones? I really hope Ukraine gets what they are asking for. So that was like a famous Marshall Island or something explosion. I have it right here. It's on the other side of my screen on my wall. I've had that poster for a long time because I never want to see one in real life. So we're just going over some of this archived footage, no discussion. But nobody understands, nobody knows what a fucking explosion looks like. So we gotta be putting this shit on the rounds on the internet just so people know what to expect. Well, having the discussion that this is probably not what nuclear war looks like anymore. This is 50 years ago. You know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. What does nuclear war look like today? I hope to never find out. And this is all fair use. Maybe I should have been reading this out loud, huh? Let me redo this. Let me rewind. These historic experiments were executed by units of the United States Army Ground Forces, Army Air Forces, and the Navy in cooperation with the Manhattan Engineering District and many other branches of the United States government and civilian scientific institutions, whatever that means. The primary purposes of the bikini tests were to secure precise and accurate OnlyFans ship damage and instrumentation measurements resulting from atomic explosions occurring both in midair and just beneath the surface of the water. The lessons learned may save many lives, many ships, and many millions of dollars by guiding future expenditures for national defense into the most productive and efficient channels. It is therefore essential that our Army and Navy designers, tacticians, strategists, and medical officers learn as much as possible now regarding the effect of the revolutionary weapon on targets not heretofore exposed to it. Without the information which can be gained from these experiments, your military leaders cannot discharge their responsibilities which you have assigned them. To find this information was the objective of Operation Crossroads. I hope the volume's good, everybody. Give me a comment if it's bad.
This is Bikini. It is here that the military and scientific personnel of Joint Task Force One will conduct the tests with the atomic bomb. Only by unleashing the destructive force of atomic energy against an array of ships could the Navy determine the future ship design of modern naval sea power. The target orientation for Test Able was based on the directive of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It required that the 90 ships anchored in Bikini Lagoon be so disposed as to secure graded ship damage ranging from maximum to minimum. The battleship USS Nevada, bomb aiming point, has been anchored at the exact center of the target array. Here to witness the completion of preparations is the President's Evaluation Commission. They will report the tests to the Commander-in-Chief. Lashed to the decks of ships are samples of military supplies and equipment. Airplanes, jeeps, trucks, and tanks, themselves targets on target ships. Animals were placed aboard some of the ships to substitute for military personnel. A study of their future life history will provide invaluable information. Steel towers 75 feet high have been erected
What happened to those animals?
on Bikini Atoll. Within these structures will be housed the remotely controlled cameras and specially designed scientific instruments that will record data resulting from the blast. Many types of special motion picture and still cameras were encased in huge lead vaults. These unusual enclosures, built of reinforced concrete to withstand the primary blast action, were lined with thick sheets of lead to protect film from the effects of radioactivity, which would otherwise fog the sensitive material. To further protect film from the effects of radiation, sliding lead panels built over the camera ports and designed to close automatically will seal
I'm gonna
an
fast
ocean
forward a
camera,
bit.
accompanied by Air Force photo.
Oh shit, did I fast forward too much? No. Imagine hearing that. Imagine hearing that in your fucking neighborhood. Like a county away.
In this view of the blast recorded from a camera tower on Bikini, the suction caused by the explosion can be seen pulling the soot from the ship's stacks into the center of the rising column. The towering cloud column rose to a height of almost 8 miles.
Almost reaching the firmament. Bro, Les Bones, I hope you never hear this. I hope we never get to hear this.
After dropping the atomic bomb, the B-29, Dave's Dream, returns to her base at Kwajalein.
The thing
Not
is,
far
like,
behind are the Air Force photographic planes with a film.
now they don't need, I don't think they really need a airplane to drop the bomb, right? They are sending rockets with these things.
In distribution. B-17 Air Force drones land at Eniwetok. These planes, guided through the center of the cloud column, gathered radioactive dust particles in large filter banks suspended from bomb racks.
I'm going to fast forward through a lot of this.
All of lethal spray and fog eventually covered the entire TARG fleet.
I'm not joking. Sometimes I'm in the shower, taking a shower, and I think, what if it happens? What if I'm in the shower? What if I'm taking a dump and this shit happens? I don't take a dump in the shower, by the way.
The next scene is a spectacular aerial view taken from directly over the blast.
Sometimes I do pee. Sometimes I do pee in the shower. Democrats got us peeing in the showers to save water in California. Hashtag no flush.
Here is one of the drone airplanes flying over the target fleet after the blast.
Shit's wild.
Preliminary appraisal of the damage. In an effort to reduce dangerous contamination, ships were sprayed with water and special chemicals so that inspection parties could board them.
They're just spraying down the ship in the open water with chemicals. Nuclear fallout. Oh, God.
It must be remembered that the primary purpose of the Bikini experiments was to secure precise technical information which will be used to determine necessary changes in the design and construction of all military equipment and especially Navy vessels required to maintain your Navy at maximum effectiveness. We must be fully prepared to protect our national security promptly and effectively in the event that we are attacked. We must defend ourselves against this new and elemental force or be destroyed by it. This is Crossroads.
That's the same excuse they use for that research they're doing in Boston, or they did in Boston for the Coco Reno's experiments. All right. Let's see what other. Oh, actually. Operation Upshot Knothole. Just gonna play a couple of these. There's tons of footage. I'll play a couple of these. Maybe they'll be my streaming for a little bit to the elections. Everyone's talking about something going down before the elections. It's going to cancel them. It might be. We'll see what happens, but we're going to see a bunch of footage from Ukraine, coming out of Ukraine on the. We're going to see a bunch of footage coming out of official Ukraine channels with this footage. Just like these old school videos saying that Russia did some shit. Okay, this seems boring already. Oh, fuck. Hold up.
From the burst point.
Whoops, I had that on.
Each canister telemetered its altitude and surrounding air pressure to a ground station tape recorder.
So I just looked this up. This is the nuclear test that happened in Nye County, Nevada, 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas. They did nuclear testing 65 miles next to Las Vegas, by the way.
From the Mach 10, indicating that the triple point where the two waves merged had sliced up through the canister line at a distance and altitude that we could compute from the recording tapes. In the nuclear radiation program, particular interest centered on Shot 10's neutron flux measurements. The first ever
Like,
made
share, and
in the
subscribe.
composition of a gun type assembly.
Let's go.
Gold, tantalum, and sulfur threshold samples were used to detect neutron energy
History
levels
class is
from
in
thermal
session.
to around 10 million electron volts. The total flux per kiloton
Let's watch this
was the
explosion.
highest ever observed. Required a new instrument line east from ground zero, roughly opposite the main blast. The development appear to be these. A weapon bursts, and thermal radiation creates an intensely hot ground layer of air. A layer filled with dust from what is called the popcorning of the hot ground. Milliseconds after the thermal flash, the incident shock wave reaches the ground and expands, trailed outward by the usual reflected wave. Then a new wave, the precursor, begins to build out from the base of the incident wave, racing ahead through the heated air layer. An intense dust cloud follows closely, rising initially to about 50 feet and later to several hundred feet. One important effect of the precursor is to lower peak static pressures without a corresponding reduction of dynamic or wind pressures. The precursor builds steadily in height, but does not seem to inhibit formation of a Mach stem, though exact dimensional relationships are uncertain. Eventually, running into cooler regions, the precursor slows and is overtaken by the Mach stem. From that point on, The blast wave structure is normal again. It should be emphasized that a precursor can form only if the ground air layer is sufficiently hot. So if height of burst is increased, yield must be increased. Without the yield increase, the ground air will be too cool for precursor formation, as was the case on shot 9, our first effect shot, 26 KT at 2,400 feet. Shot 10, 15 KT at only 500 feet, developed a strong precursor. It was on this shot that we ran the smoke experiment. A carbon black smoke was established over nearly a mile of the new instrument line. We expected that the top of the black smoke
Very
would absorb
educational.
thermal energy and produce an extra hot layer well above ground, possibly generating a controlled super precursor at that height, or in some other manner reducing blast effects on ground targets. The experiment was handicapped to an unknown degree by wind billowing the smoke up to 300 or 400 feet, modifying the planned geometry. As it happened, the ground-level precursor, which developed under the smoke, was stronger than the one in the clear, although it extended only half as far before decaying to a conventional blast form.
It's like,
This
can you
test
go
was not conclusive as to the
check
effect
this
of
site
emitted
out
glowing black smoke on blast.
and like
A further precursor
be
study
safe
was set
after
up
you
to
leave?
determine whether ground surface heating from
Next time I go to
thermal blast
Vegas.
could generate a shock wave before arrival of the normal shock front. Panels 10 feet square, faced with variously heat-absorptive and reactive materials, were tilted for maximum exposure to the thermal radiation of the two effect shots. Post-shot study of the gauge records showed no clear evidence of thermally induced shock waves. We come now to the biggest program, the primary reason for shot 9, the first effect shot. The biggest program in sheer volume, in theoretical predictions confirmed or refuted, and in the mass of empirical knowledge gained. 28 separate projects came under this heading, beginning with basic measurements on simple cylinders and rectangular concrete slab structures in a number of orientations. These passive targets, heavily instrumented, were not designed for response by displacement, but only to record shielding and loading factors at various heights and aspects. The findings of this important job can now be extrapolated for prediction of blast loading on a great variety of targets without direct testing. We begin to bump into the precursor again. A truss bridge section 2,300 feet from zero. Shot 9, 26 KT, 2,400 feet high, produced a small permanent set in the top chord with an overpressure of 11.5 pounds per square inch. But the mock stem had not formed to reach the height of the bridge.
That's crazy. They're like making structures that exist in cities, and they blew it up just to see what happens. So they know exactly what happens to a bridge, exactly what happens to a building. But we don't know much about 9/11.
Movement out of all proportion to that
These
caused
are all
by
bridges,
almost
by the way.
same static
Sorry,
pressure
I
on
was
the first
muted.
shot. Army equipment, which included 54 trucks and jeeps, was exposed to shot 9 pressures ranging up to 21 pounds to the inch. Thermal input reached 130 calories per square centimeter. Damage was generally moderate, as expected. All but 2 vehicles, one with burned tires and one with a missile-punctured radiator, could be driven away under their own power. For shot 10, Army tanks, artillery.
So that was actually pretty interesting. So they blew this shit up with an atomic bomb in the Nevada desert. They're seeing what all these structures are doing. They left some vehicles. This guy just said that they were able to flip a vehicle over and continue driving it. So we need to get some more trucks.
Artillery and 22 trucks were exposed.
Something with like a lot of electronics isn't going to work. if you survive and you can drive.
To pressures expected to range from 3 to 55 psi. Once more, damage was much greater than expected. Equipment was not merely overturned, but often torn to pieces or hurled great distances at overpressures from which no such effects were predicted. Pressures which had done negligible damage to identical items on Shot 9. Obviously, Shot 10 was handing out surprise data. It was evident that our old static pressure criteria were not valid for predicting damage to wind-sensitive targets in the precursor region of low bursts. Not only were there violent high-frequency pressure fluctuations in this region, Shot 10 damage was again unexpected. A few conclusions that can be drawn now are that quarter-inch clear plastic shattered least of the material tested. Quarter-inch wire mesh was the largest mesh effective in reducing interior missile hazard. Exterior jalousies were worthless, and explosion hardware has very limited usefulness and may even be disadvantageous. Signal Corps placed radial and transverse pole lines, underground wires, and aluminum towers at different distances to test damage effects and determine time required to restore communication facilities. On Shot 9, pressures of 7 to 9 psi knocked down the transverse pole lines at 3,500 and 4,500 feet, and partially destroyed lines at 5,500 feet in the 5-pound region. However, radial pole lines end on to the blast were almost undamaged. Similarly, towers at 3,400 and 4,400 feet were knocked down, and the one at 5,400 feet heavily damaged. At 6,400 feet, the top section of this 240-foot tower was made unsafe by 4.5 psi. Shot 10 damage to these installations was much heavier.
That's crazy. We should, so I don't, all this shit was done in the 50s. Somebody should go out and be like, that radio tower isn't high enough to withstand a blast, and just like see what this infrastructure, if they got the learnings from what they did here and applied them to infrastructure across the United States or like in other countries. I mean, more likely the United States, but they did all this testing. Did they apply any of his data to the infrastructure or just like the military outposts and fucking camps and whatever that is that they do army shit at, where they do the push-ups?
The blast winds destroyed even the radial pole line,
Where they do push-up contests.
With static pressures by which it was undamaged on Shot 9. Air Force, Marine, and Quartermaster POL installations were given extensive testing. Major items were 5 and 55-gallon drum stacks, bulk storage tanks, and various subsidiary items such as can cleaning, metering, filtering, and pumping equipment. In general, Shot 9.
They're only testing military like bases. Nothing about humans. Forget everything I said. They weren't testing to see if the civilians of an atomic blast would be safe or not. I guess, let me take that back. I keep forgetting that the United States is the only country in the world that has done 2 nuclear bombs on people. So they do have the data. They do know exactly what happened.
Damage was light or insignificant. There were minor gasoline fires. Drum and can stacks were scattered slightly in the maximum pressure areas, around 16 psi.
The gas will be okay, thank God.
900-gallon tanks were ruptured by 11 pounds at 2,600 feet. On Shot 10, results were unexpectedly violent. All stacks disintegrated, with cans and drums
Shot
thrown
10.
hundreds of feet and left flattened or badly crushed. All marine
We lose
fuel
the
handling
gas.
equipment was destroyed except one collapsible tank. Almost complete destruction occurred at better than 2,000 feet, at the same pressures that did trivial damage on Shot 9. A study of tactical importance. 145 ponderosa pines set in concrete. approximately 6,400 feet from shot 9's 0. Instrumentation was thorough. A few major types being pressure gauges at 3 heights, time recording anemometers, pitot-type dynamic pressure detectors, and snubber wire arrangements to measure deflections. Pendulums were substituted for the lollipops of former operations to provide mechanical simulation of tree response. As on many of these projects, camera stations were set up to provide high-speed motion picture coverage of blast effects. Thermal input, 18 calories per square centimeter, resulting in only mild char on tree trunks, since the normal ground litter that will ignite at around 3 calories was lacking. Static pressures around 4 psi. Post-blast survey indicated that approximately 20% of the trees were broken, and the missile hazard from falling trunks and limbs would be substantial. There was scant reduction of static pressure inside the stand, but a 20 to 40% reduction of dynamic or drag pressures. Thermal shielding proved excellent, with negligible penetration beyond the 4th row of trees. 16 items of Army rolling stock were exposed on shot 10 only. A 45-ton diesel locomotive, 1 riveted and 1 welded steel tank car, 13 boxcars loaded and unloaded of various types, 6,600 feet, 2 pounds overpressure, 4,400 feet, 4 psi, 1 empty boxcar turned over, 1 loaded car damaged, 3,400 feet, 6 psi. Boxcars damaged or overturned. 2,800 feet, 7.5 pounds. 1,850 feet, 9 pounds. 1,500 feet, before being hit by 13 pounds to the inch. And here's the same view afterward. The frame of one of those tank cars was thrown against a building 200 feet away. A tank car body went 1,200 feet. The whys and hows of these excessive damage effects at
So,
static pressure levels where no
looks like
such
trains
results
are gone.
will require further study, as will the mechanics of precursor development over surfaces less suited to optimum damage on many important targets. The tremendous destructive force of a low burst has brought about an interim restatement of damage criteria for drag-sensitive targets, and was the most important single finding of the military effects tests of Operation Upshot Knothole.
What?
And the tremendous destructive force of a low to maximize precursor formation. Such effects may be characteristic of any low burst, without regard to precursor phenomena. Although high bursts are still required for optimum damage on many important targets, the tremendous destructive force of a low burst has brought about an interim restatement of damage criteria for drag-sensitive targets, and was the most important single finding of the military effects tests of Operation Upshot Knothole.
Okay, so the military learned during this Operation Knothole that if you're going to blow up something important with a nuclear bomb, you're going to want to do a pre-bomb that detonates above ground in the air to warm up the air underneath, and then the fat ass bomb to hit that to cause maximum destruction. But they learned if you just hit it on the ground with a fat bomb, it still blows shit up. It just isn't as lethal, doesn't do as much stuff. So I guess if this ever happens, expect 2 bombs. I mean, we already paid for them. Dang. Okay. I think I'm gonna play one more video that I found. This one's about the aftermath of food, of farming after a nuclear explosion. They did some testing on that. But let me see if I could find it. I should have saved the tab. Oh, here it is. I'm gonna switch tabs really quick. Hey guys, thank you for watching. There's been a couple people watching. Hopefully this is informative. I know it's probably stressful and makes you sad and upset that we have Dementia Joe as our president, backed by countless people who just want to blow things up because they make money telling them what to do or what papers to sign, so it's official. But I think it's important to rewatch some of this footage because nobody is really showing it. Nobody understands the magnitude of nuclear war, because they're not really showing you things blowing up, destruction. They're just talking about nuclear war, but we don't really know what that looks like. And there's plenty of footage letting you know what that looks like. So I think it's important to rewatch it. Food supply after the bomb. Just need to update this video. That's a Tesla. That's a Subaru, actually.
Howdy, Sam.
Subaru is going to be the only car that works
What
after.
brings you out here?
Martha sent me after a couple of quarts of milk.
Ain't they got none at the general store?
The general stores are closed, Hank.
How come?
Ralph had to go visit his folks in Waterton. I guess he couldn't find anyone to run the store.
Anything you need besides milk, Sam?
Not today, but if Ralph don't get back pretty soon, we're going to need some beef.
I ain't figuring on budget until Tuesday.
Well, I have to pick up a sack of flour at the mill on Wednesday. I'll step back then.
All right. I'll put by a little beef for you.
Thanks. I'll appreciate it.
By the way, Becky's put out some apricot preserves. Why don't you go get some while I fetch the milk?
All right, Hank. I sure do like Becky's apricot preserves.
See you up the house, then.
Okay.
Since this scene took place some 50 years ago, many changes have been made in the way things are done on the farm. The machine age has affected agriculture as well as industry. And even though the modern farmer may still have to chase his cows, machinery is available to make practically everything else he does simpler and easier. The milking machine, for instance, has eliminated the slow and tedious process of milking by hand. Cranking the separator is another chore the farmer no longer has to do. Instead, packing plants in the city. These packing plants do more than simply butcher cattle. Meat is packaged for the home freezer. Many cuts are canned. Ingredients for medicine are extracted from the glands. Fertilizer is made from the bones. And as the old saying goes, everything is used but the squeal. Whether it's cutting dried beef into paper-thin slices or making hot dogs, modern machinery has made the job faster and easier than the old-fashioned methods. The farmer's grain, once ground at local mills, now goes to giant elevators in the city. Dresses and pillow slips are still made from the colorful sacks, but the flour inside is better and more consistent in quality. The housewife can select pancake flour, biscuit flour, and a variety of cake mixes to make her baking problem simpler. Research and testing is continually carried on in flour mills to improve quality and develop new flour products. Grandmother put up her jam when the fruit was ripe, but today the fruit is canned or frozen and then made into jam or jelly throughout the year.
sprawling warehouses in the city have replaced
Jam or
the
jelly?
old-fashioned food cellar.
Fire.
Vegetables, frozen food, staple groceries, and meat are stored here under exacting conditions of temperature and humidity. Farmer Jones now sends his milk, his livestock, his grain.
So
and
I'm
most of his
assuming
other
they're
farm
eventually going to
products
get
the city
to,
be
this is
processed.
the food
Here they
system
are
we've
stored for later
created.
distribution over a vast area.
This is it after it's been blown up,
What then
literally.
would happen to this highly centralized and complex system of food processing and distribution should a city be devastated by an enemy bomb? The centralization of the food industry has made it a highly vulnerable target. In an average American city, a single bomb would disable 95% of the food processing industry, destroy 87% of the food stored in warehouses, and wipe out at least 62% of the retail food stores.
We're done.
Grocery stores on the fringe of the blast would be closed for decontamination. Some of the food would be condemned and destroyed. Other foodstuffs, particularly canned goods, could be salvaged by washing with water. But since the city water supply would probably be contaminated, emergency water carriers, such as this concrete truck, would be pressed into service to transport pure water from rural areas. What about food stores in the suburbs that haven't been damaged? Let's look into one and see what might happen.
This shit would be raided.
Will that be all, ma'am?
Yes, I think I can make that do. I don't usually get this much, but I'm feeding 2 extra families now.
It seems like everybody's taking care of folks from downtown.
I'm so glad my home's still in one piece, I don't really mind the inconvenience at all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is a conversation after a nuclear explosion. Here's my money. I'll take your money if you want to
all
eat.
those groceries, ma'am?
Oh, I certainly do.
I suppose you've heard there's a serious food shortage.
Now look here, I'll decide what I need. It's your job to sell me the food.
Excuse me. We've been trying to reach you by phone, but all the lines are down. The governor has ordered all food stores in this area closed.
How come?
There just isn't enough food to go around. We'll probably have to take most of your groceries to the field kitchen at Brighton.
How soon do you think we'll open again?
Oh, it'll be about a week before enough food is shipped in, and even then it'll probably be rationed.
You mean we're closed down now?
That's right. No more food is to leave the store. Where's the manager?
I think you'll find him in the storeroom in the back.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I suppose you heard. No more groceries go out of the store today.
Well, how in the world do you expect me to eat? Do you want me to starve to death? Oh, never mind.
It doesn't take many hoarders to deplete the city's dwindling food supply. Consequently, grocery stores will be closed for hundreds of miles in the vicinity of the blast to
Yeah,
preserve
she
the
would.
remaining foodstuffs for emergency use. The housewife will have to feed her family for as long as 10 days.
Hunter
with the
Biden's going to be
groceries she
right
has
there,
on
like,
hand.
to get those groceries.
Let's look into a suburban home that hasn't
Still.
been damaged by the blast. This lady is more fortunate than most. She has a large supply of food on hand and doesn't anticipate any trouble in keeping her family well fed. It looks like tonight's menu will include some fried potatoes. There's a surprise in store, however, when she tries to turn on the stove. The blast has damaged the gas mains and storage tanks. It will be quite some time before the service is restored again. Trying to
Guys,
prepare a
get
meal without a
propane
stove
shit, get
presents a
some
real problem.
food.
It will be
It might
interesting to
get
see
blown
how the
up,
family
but
likes
if your
those
food's not
raw
there, you're
potatoes.
probably not there either
But wait a minute.
anymore.
She just remembered her charcoal broiler. And not only will she be able to fry the potatoes, she can also have some charcoal broiled steaks. The freezing compartment of her refrigerator has enough steak to last for days. She doesn't feel quite right about eating charcoal broiled steaks while others are existing on a substandard diet. But once again, she took too much for granted. Her freezer hasn't been operating for several days because the generating plant was destroyed by the blast, and most of the power lines are down. Frozen food doesn't last long after the freezer stops working.
Hey, she has a compost
What
bin.
about the other food in the refrigerator? It's not keeping well either, particularly the milk, which doesn't last long without refrigeration. The baby would have a rough time of it
Let me
if
just
this
put that milk
housewife
back in
wasn't
the
fortunate enough
fridge.
to have a supply of dried milk on hand. Dried milk keeps without refrigeration, and all she has to do is add water to make a substitute for fresh milk. Unfortunately, however, more unpleasantness awaits her when she tries to add water. Contamination from the blast has polluted the reservoirs, and the city health department has shut off the water. This also leaves her without any drinking water. And cooking
Holy
without water is
fucking
difficult,
shit.
since many foods require its use. This lady is not as well off as she thought. She has plenty of groceries, but not the right
Can't
kind.
cook a steak.
The
Can't
question is, what can
drink
a
milk
housewife do
because
to
the
prepare
water's
for such
out.
an
So I'm
emergency
gonna smoke
when the
and read a
home is
book.
without gas, water, or electricity? To answer this question, let's go to the grocery store. This lady is shopping for her supply of emergency groceries. She will select food that can be kept for a long period of time without refrigeration, that can be prepared without water, and can be served, if necessary, without heating or cooking. Most canned foods meet these requirements. So let's start with some vegetables. Practically every type is put in cans. Corn, tomatoes, peas, beans, and many other varieties are available to suit the taste. Each family has certain food preferences, and this should be
Damn,
kept
we're
in
gonna
mind
live off
when making the
SpaghettiOs.
selection. Since these groceries could be a family's entire food supply in time of emergency, it's well to choose a variety, since eating the same thing day after day can become monotonous and unappetizing. Canned fruit should also be included on the shopping list. It's delicious when served right out of the can. Don't forget the canned juices. They will provide plenty of liquid if there's a shortage of drinking water. The emergency food supply should be large enough to last at least 7 days. Since most kitchens normally have a 3-day supply of food, this brings the total food supply to 10 days, which is the estimated time it will take to resume normal food distribution after an enemy attack. Meat
You heard
furnishes
it from the
plenty of
government.
food. Unnecessary
10 days of food. They're gonna get you food in 10 days if somebody does something here. That somebody being whoever you want it to be. That has a Russian last name.
part of any well-balanced diet. Select
Or an American name, actually.
the variety that requires no cooking or refrigeration. If there are babies or children in the house, milk is sure to be an essential food item. Canned milk is condensed and requires dilution, so water should be stored with the emergency food for this purpose. Everything this lady has selected comes in cans. The question is, does it have to come in cans to be suitable for an emergency food? The
Yeah,
answer
all
is
the
no.
water bottles are
This
plastic.
lady prefers canned soup. You might like some graham
How do you
crackers
save water if
or some
everything's
raisins or
a
dried
plastic
apricots.
water bottle?
All these things are suitable since they fulfill the requirements for an emergency food. If you have any questions about what to buy, call or write your local civil defense agency and they will be glad to help. If this emergency food is placed on the shelf, the housewife will find herself using some of the items when she runs short of her regular groceries. If this happens, it won't take long to deplete the emergency food supply and destroy its effectiveness. The best plan is to store the food separately
Oh,
in a
2 jugs
cardboard
of
box.
water and mason
Water
jar.
can be sealed in jars and packed with the groceries. Water is essential for preparing canned milk and could come in mighty handy for drinking or cooking. The best place to store the box is in a bomb shelter. If one is not available, the next best bet is against the basement wall, closest to the center of the city. After the box is filled, it should be sealed to protect the contents from possible contamination by radioactive fallout. The emergency food box is an investment in time and money, but a good investment in terms of the dividends it may someday pay in the form of a healthy, well-fed family.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. There's a few of you watching live. No comments. Not too many comments except from Les Bones. Thank you, Les Bones, if you're still watching. If you rewatch this, maybe you want to like it. Let me know if you want me to keep watching these videos. I probably will, just for educational purposes. We should prepare for what's going to be going down soon. I'll find some other things, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna again. I always say this all the time, but I'm gonna try to stream more. But I'm not gonna get your guys' hopes up. You'll see me when I feel like it. Just sometimes there's just so much going on. I just rather watch sometimes than talk. And anyways, it's Thursday, October 20th. Let's see, 18 days away from the election. Maybe on the next stream, I will go over my California sample ballot. Or maybe I'll just open my mail-in ballot that I didn't request, but they sent me one. Them being Governor Newsom, thank you for sending me a official ballot without requesting one. And thankfully you guys sent it to the right address, because the last time I went to vote in June, I had re-registered to my new address and I wasn't on the voter rolls when I went there. So thankfully you guys sent it to the right place. Somebody could have voted for me. I'm gonna vote in person. So yeah, next stream, I'm gonna go over the California sample ballot, and I will go over the official ballot for California, because I'm not gonna use it because I'm gonna vote in person. And if I'm not allowed to vote in person, I'm gonna be mad. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your nights, and I will see you hopefully soon. I'm on channel 99 on the ham radio.